Okay, I'll call the meeting to order. Sorry, I'm a couple of minutes late. I had a few more chores than I expected. Notice is hereby provided that under the authority of the Municipal Act and in accordance with Municipal Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act, that all information attained in this meeting is considered part of the public record. Can I get a motion to adopt the agenda? Deputy Reeve Davison and Councillor Milligan, all in favor? That's carried, thank you. Any declaration of pecuniary interest? None declared. Before we get into the major part of the meeting, such as it is tonight, we have a statutory public meeting regarding a zoning bylaw amendment application, file number ZON 2025-0004. This is a public meeting held in accordance with provisions of Section 2412 of the Planning Act to consider an amendment to the Township of Stone Mills Comprehensive Zoning Bylaw 2014-744. The proposed amendment applies to the property municipally described as 61 Inglesby Road, RR2 Aaronsville. And the purpose of the application is to satisfy a condition of the provisionally approved consent application, CON 2025-0023, to rezone the proposed severed lands to residential limited services so that the entire enlarged benefiting parcel is zoned as RLS as the consent reflects a lot addition. The proposed retained parcel will remain within the rural zone. The application relates to consent application as mentioned, which was previously approved on September 24th last year. Council shall hear in person or by his or her counsel, solicitor, or agent any person who claims to be affected by this application. And we have a planning report prepared by Holly Newitt, our planning consultant from FOTEN. Did you wish to speak to this, Holly?
Thank you, and through you, Mayor. Just to note that we did have correspondence from an adjacent property owner. Their concerns primarily were in regards to Burdick Lane and confirming that that lane will still be functional and permit them access to their property. That is the case. The lane is established through the survey and will remain as existing as a result of these applications.
That access is registered on title in some way?
Correct. It is registered on as a legal right-of-way for the property as well as being registered through the survey. So it would have the zoning on the property would have no effect on the lane.
Thank you. There's no one here that apparently wants to speak on this. Does council have any questions or comments? And anything from planner, Mark, anything to comment on this one from you? No? Okay. In that case, we have a recommendation that the council approves zoning bylaw amendment application for the property municipally known as 61 Inglesby Road. Can I get a mover and seconder for that? Councillor Land and Councillor Woodcock. Any discussion? All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Anyone sign up for open forum, Randy? No? Okay. Nobody for open forum. No presentations, no deputations. We just have a few items for consideration. And I will say that I probably would have suggested we defer this meeting, except we wanted to expedite this zoning bylaw amendment because we've had such a backlog of planning decisions. And I'm glad we got that done. So our first item for consideration is from the Newburgh-Camden Lions Club, and they are requesting a donation for the annual Breakfast with Santa and Breakfast with Easter Bunny events. Did you wish to speak to this, Brandy?
Through you, Mayor Wise, nothing further to add to the report. If there's any questions, I can answer them.
My mic on. The motion is that the report medical clinic lease renewals be received, and that council authorize the mayor and CAO to execute 3-year lease agreements with both medical practices operating at 52 Concession Street South in Tamworth and 5 Earl Street in Newburgh under the same terms and conditions as the previous agreements at a rental rate of $1,000 per month, $12,000 annually per practice for the term commencing January 1st, 2026 and ending on the 31st day of December 2029. Can I get a mover and seconder to put that on the floor, please? Deputy Davison, Councillor Woodcock. CAO White, did you wish to elaborate or add anything?
Thank you, through you, Mayor Wise. Just to, again, highlight that this is a 3-year agreement that shows the Township's and Council's commitment to supporting the medical practices we do have here in the Township. Through this process, I was able to spend some time at both medical clinics, probably a little bit overdue in the time that I've been here. Was able to meet the providers at both clinics and had some great conversations about how their practices are running and got a little bit more familiar with them. I would note that the agreement extension that we're talking about here does coincide with some commitments we do have from previous funding in the Tamworth clinics, and so that at the renewal time there may be some options to do something different, but that would come back to council at that time, and you know, at the request of the providers at that clinic if they so choose. But through discussions and whatnot, I did relay on behalf of council the desire to support the ongoing operations of these clinics in our community, and this gives us some 3 years of stability, I guess, through this process. And I'm happy to answer any questions that council may have about these renewals, but should be a routine administrative process. But again, just that commitment from the township to those two facilities.
Thanks, Jason. Any questions or comments from council? In that case, all in favor of the recommendation? Carried, thank you. Which brings us to our consent agenda. Does anyone wish to pull an item or more from the consent agenda? Yes, Deputy Reeve Davison.
9.5, 9.6, and 9.11.
9.5, 9.6, and 9.11. Anyone else? Councillor Milligan.
I just wanted to speak quickly about 9.3.
9.3. Anyone else? Okay, Doug, why don't you go ahead with 9.3 first? Sure, if we can do it that way. Sherry, go ahead.
I just found it very interesting reading the TAC minutes, and I wanted to bring to everyone's attention in case they missed it. It was, I think, on page 7 or 8 or so, they talked about the speeds, and it's very interesting that the speeds pretty much, well, I think everywhere, they said, have lowered. So I know we all get complaints all the time about speeds, and I thought that was really great news. Just to bring that to your attention if you didn't see it.
So did you wish to receive and support that or something to that effect? Since
Just
we have to have
receive.
some
I
sort of
don't
motion.
know that if we need to support it, but just
Okay,
receive it.
just receive it.
Yeah.
Okay, is there a seconder for that? Councillor Land, all in favor? That's carried. Doug, 9.5, was that your?
9.5 and 9.6, both are ones from River Lakes, the others from Tyandanega, and they're both 9.5 and 9.6 are both objections to Alto. 9.5 is from Rideau Lakes, and it's a very well-written letter from their mayor going to the federal government. And 9.6 is the same thing, and I'd like to see us endorse both of them, support them. I'd move that.
Is there a seconder? Yeah.
Can we do individual?
Yeah, sure.
Yep.
Yeah. So 9.5 is a letter of from Rideau Lakes opposing Alto, and Deputy Mayor Davison moves and Councillor Land seconds. All in favor? That's carried. And 9.6 is a resolution opposing the southern route of Alto from Tyandanega Township. And same mover and seconder? Is that okay with you, Wenda?
Yep.
All in favor? That's carried, thank you. And was it 9?
9.11?
11, yes.
9.11 is a letter to the province talking about control of police cost. And I just like to think, I think we should support it.
So Deputy Mayor Davison moves support of this letter from Prince Edward County on police costing. Is there a seconder for that? Councillor Woodcock? Any discussion? Yes, Councillor Woodcock.
Yeah, I was going to pull that one out too. So in our budget this year, it was 11%, which is a provincially mandated cap, but I do believe there's a part that would have been more like 18 without that cap. Of course, 11 over 11, I mean, if that continues, that's not sustainable when we have very little means of producing income, so very much in favor of that.
Anyone else? All in favor? That's carried, thank you. Can I get a mover for the balance of the consent agenda? Councillor Milligan, Councillor McDonald, all in favor? That's carried, thank you. Which brings us to notice of motion and direct motion. Does anyone have a notice of motion? Oh, right, yes. Go ahead, Councillor Fenwick.
Yeah, I made a notice of motion at the last meeting. Pretty straightforward. What I was hoping for was a motion asking staff to bring forward some recommendations to how we can affordably and effectively communicate, mostly to do with our burning bylaws, to remind people that burning and that burning garbage in particular is what I'm hoping to focus on, is something we can remind people it's illegal, it's not good for anybody, and really it's immoral. So I know morality is something you can't necessarily legislate, but in this case we do have laws against such a thing. So I'm hoping that staff can bring forward some recommendations so we can choose a few things, or maybe all of them, in particular using our landfills as communication spaces. I've always believed that that's something, we have a bit of a captive audience there. They're slowed down, they're stopping, there's a conversation sometimes happens, and that's a great opportunity to bring this forward, so maybe that could be included in that. And I'm curious to see what staff can come up with otherwise. In particular, John had mentioned, or Mayor Wise, first time I got to say that, had mentioned previous about dog tags, for example, and that brought this to mind, that we can remind people of things very effectively at our landfills at low cost with maybe reusable signage, for example, at peak times. So that's what I'm looking for, and basically want to hear what staff has to say about how we can get the word out.
So do you have a motion, Rob, or do you just want to have a discussion right now, or what's your?
I'm going to make a motion for that. Brandy's going to help me with how to word it, and bring forward, basically staff bringing forward a report as to what they see would be the most effective and economical way for us to get that information across, and potentially using our landfills as communication spaces.
Okay, is there a seconder for that motion? Councillor Milligan. Any questions or discussion? I think it's a great idea. Yes, Brandy, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Wise. So what I've captured is that staff be directed to bring a report back to council regarding public education options and costing to educate the public on the burn bylaw and other municipal bylaws.
Anyone else? So I can't remember how many years ago, but we had a sort of a spate of garbage burning within the hamlets. And I think at that point we modified the burn bylaw and had specific distances prescribed. Jeff, jump on me if I get this wrong, but you couldn't burn within a hamlet, period. I believe that's right. And outside the hamlet, you can still burn garbage, but you have to be a certain distance from your nearest neighbor. Is that how it goes, Jeff? Or do you recall offhand? Sorry to put you on the spot.
No problem. Through you, Mayor Wise. I got it right, Mayor. Yeah, there is limitations within the hamlet, and it's prescribed as a built-up area, so it's 6 entrances within 150 meters, I believe, is classed as a hamlet area. As far as garbage, you can only burn prohibited materials, so like cardboard, papers, you can't burn garbage. You can't burn plastics, rubber, food containers, stuff that's recyclable. Yeah, and I think that bylaw was maybe 2014 changed.
Thanks, Jeff. Yeah, the only things you can burn are things that are basically recyclable anyway. So
Yeah,
all
and
that fuss for nothing, really.
we have a pretty good infograph that explains the burn bylaw. It's kind of simplified in an infograph that's on our website, and we throw it on social media once in a while as well.
I think when we did that, so that is over 10 years ago, I came across an 8.5 by 11 flyer from Environment Canada, and I think it was just titled "What Goes Up Must Come Down," and it documented low temperature burning releases of furans and dioxins from things as simple as cardboard. So you get one of those burn barrels which has very poor air circulation. It's burning at a relatively low temperature, and it releases a mess of nasty chemicals that might be actually consumed in a high temperature fire if it was a real incinerator, but aren't in a burn barrel. So you're not only stinking up the neighborhood, you're actually poisoning the neighborhood. It'll fall on garden plants and things that cattle and grazing animals eat and so on. And I think that's still available, that pamphlet. I will take it upon myself to look that up. I may still have some copies. Remember, Environment Canada sent me about 200 copies of that leaflet, and I just went around sticking them in mailboxes of certain homes. So I'm sure people were mad, but it's a very damning indictment of the practice of burning even innocuous things like cardboard. So that's great, Rob. Sherry, did you have a notice of motion or a direct motion?
I have a direct motion regarding the Alto stuff. Just go?
Yeah, just go.
Tonight, I'm bringing forward a motion that addresses 3 important points. First, it asks the federal government to require a full federal impact assessment of the project. Given the potential impacts on farmland, homes, water systems, and rural communities, I believe a comprehensive and transparent review is both reasonable and necessary. Second, the motion asks that the government seriously examine an alternative approach, high-frequency rail, along the existing corridor that is owned by CN but used by VIA. Using infrastructure that is already in place would reduce environmental disruption, lower costs, and avoid many of the impacts currently facing rural municipalities like ours. Third, I'm requesting that the Government of Canada pause the advancement of the Alto high-speed rail corridor provisions contained within Bill C-15 until a full federal impact assessment has been completed. This motion is not about opposing rail. It is about ensuring that any major national infrastructure project is undertaken carefully, transparently, and in a way that respects rural communities. With that, I would like to move the following motion. Whereas the Government of Canada has announced the proposed Alto high-speed rail project connecting Toronto to Quebec City, and whereas one of the proposed routing options would establish a new rail corridor through rural communities, including the Township of Stone Mills, and whereas the development of a new greenfield corridor would require the acquisition and potential expropriation of private land, including productive agricultural land and environmentally sensitive areas. And whereas improvements to existing rail infrastructure to support high-frequency passenger rail service may provide significant transportation benefits while minimizing new land acquisition, environmental impacts, and disruption to rural communities. And whereas large-scale infrastructure projects with significant environmental, agricultural, and community impacts warrant comprehensive federal review, and whereas the scale, potential environmental effects, impacts on agricultural land, and possible federal involvement in the proposed Alto high-speed rail project may meet the criteria for a designated project requiring federal review under the Impact Assessment Act. Now therefore be it resolved that the Council of the Township of Stone Mills, 1, requests that the Government of Canada require a full federal impact assessment for the proposed Alto high-speed rail project to evaluate the environmental, agricultural, economic, and social impacts of the project and its routing options. 2, urge the Government of Canada to fully evaluate the option of developing high-frequency passenger rail along existing rail corridors, including the existing corridor owned by Canadian National Railway as a lower-impact alternative to constructing a new rail corridor. 3, request that the Government of Canada pause the advancement of the Alto high-speed rail corridor provisions contained within Bill C-15 until a full federal impact assessment has been completed. Be it further resolved that staff be directed to forward a copy of this resolution to Mark Carney, Prime Minister of Canada, Doug Ford, Premier of Ontario, Shelby Cramp-Nyman, MP for Hastings, Lennox and Addington, Tyendinaga, Rick Brzee, MPP for Hastings, Lennox and Addington, the Federal Minister of Transport, Steve McKinnon, Julie DeBrusen, the Federal Minister of Environment and Climate Change, Terrence Hubbard, President, Impact Assessment of Canada, members of the Senate Transport Committee, the project leadership of the Alto High-Speed Rail Project, AMO President, Mayor Robin Jones, AMO Land Use Planning and Resources Chair, Mayor Lynn Dolan, and Vice Chair Councillor Kieran McKenzie, the Roma Board of Directors, the Eastern Ontario Warden Caucus Chair Bonnie Clark and Vice Chair Nathan Townend, and neighboring municipalities. This motion simply asks that a project of this magnitude be reviewed fully and fairly, and that alternatives that could reduce impacts on rural communities like ours are seriously considered. Major national infrastructure projects should not move forward by bypassing the very communities that will live with the consequences. Thank you.
Thank you, Sherry. Is there a seconder for that? Councillor Land, any discussion? All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Does anyone have any announcements? Our next meeting is the second Monday in April. Does anyone know the date of that, just for the public record? Thank you, Rob. Can I get a mover for the confirmation bylaw? Councillor Milligan, Councillor Fenwick, all in favor? It's carried. And a motion to adjourn. Councillor McDonald, Councillor Land, all in favor? That's carried. Thank you.